Well, first of all, thanks guys for obviously inviting me on and asking me to come in and talk about the Scrum. Obviously, it's a bit of a strange times at the moment, and I guess I'm going to go through and talk about how we how we coach the Scrum and what we do here at Saracens and some of the philosophies and things we do. But maybe should be thinking about how we're gonna do social distancing scrums at some point. But as it is at the moment, we're hopefully going to get back to it, and we're going to be having proper full scrums sooner rather than later. So again, I'll say what we'll do is we'll go through this. I'll go through some of the key areas for us and how we look at it, how we practice it, and then we'll get some questions and things as we're going through it. So I think just to start with, and a good point for us just to start is to understand what our Scrum philosophy is. So I've just put an example of one there. So to be number one at producing quick and usable ball to strike, forcing opposition to play away scrappy. But I think you've got to come up with a philosophy that fits for you and fits for your team. And when I say fits for you, it's got to fit for you as a group of forwards. Not just for you as a group of forwards, but for the group of forwards that you've got and what competition you're actually playing in. So for example, if you're talking having a Scrum philosophy and you've got a lightweight pack that are really mobile and you're playing in a competition that's full of teams that have got massive big scrummaging packs, well, I'm guessing you're not going to have a philosophy that's going to be right, well, we're going to dominate them and take them on and look to win penalties. It might be more about producing quick usable ball to strike off, and again how you then look to do that. So I think we've got to understand and get a good picture of what it is and how the Scrum fits into your team and what that's going to be. And then for me, then it's then how that looks tactically around how we're going to work that from week to week around what we're going to try and do to get what we want to do. So how are we going to tactically this week attack this game to get quick usable ball to strike off from the Scrum against the opposition that we're obviously facing. So there's the tactical bit to that, and then for me there's three key areas and three key things that then we'll talk about that feed into this tactical, the Scrum tactically and how we manage to get that from game to game. So the three key areas for us is obviously there's mindset, there's the physical part to it, and then there's obviously the skill set or the technical stuff, if you like. And again, there's those three key areas, and again, each one is we've got to spend time looking at those to understand how we're going to get what we want to get tactically out of it. So I guess we kick off with the first one for to start with, obviously around the mindset stuff. And I guess it's a huge thing for us to talk about. And again, it's not just something that I think that it's not just a front row thing. It's got to be the whole pack, the whole eight have got to understand what the Scrum gives us and what we're doing, what we're looking to try and create with the Scrum, and what difference can we make with our Scrum. So again, the whole eight for us have got to be able to buy into that. And again, we understand that with our mindset, with our mentality, that drives all of our physical actions. So if we don't have the right mindset, we don't physically then get what we want to get off the back of it anyway. So mindset is huge. And again, I think if I just jump out of this, I'll just show you, I guess, a couple of clips just around some of that and how important and why we will talk about it a lot. So I'll just present that one. So again, real easy, really clear, hopefully for you all to see, is just around what's happened here post the set. So at the point of the ball coming in, we're looking okay, and everybody's got their heads in the Scrum and looking to scrummage. But it's then just as this clip goes on, so I'm just going to knock the volume off as well. As this clip rolls on, we can then now just see, and again, if we circle these guys, it's fairly clear and obvious. Not so mentally switched onto the Scrum, and the Scrum as the first thing that's on our mind, but obviously thinking about what's coming off the back of it. So it's got to be the first and foremost. It's got to be Scrum first, and then what we're going to do later. So ultimately, we know then this leads to, if we've got 5 guys coming against their 8, because our mindset is somewhere else. Well, then we're going to get what we got, and obviously got here against Newcastle. So it's massive for us. And again, we'll look at this, and again, this is a Scrum from earlier in the season. against London Irish. So at this point, we're losing. So 74 minutes, we're losing by 13 points to 8. Only obviously 5 minutes left of the game. And the whole mindset on their ball was, look, we're gonna make as much of a mess of this as we can. We're gonna try and force something on them. But again, it takes everybody in this and everybody fully buying into it. And again, compare that clip the last time to then what we're getting from our back row boys this time. So actually staying fully engaged and staying in the scrum and everybody going for it. Ultimately, what it gives us then is a dominant scrum, and it gives us that opportunity now to win that penalty and to go in the corner and ultimately go on and give ourselves a chance to win the game. So that's just some of the stuff say around the mentality stuff. So I'll go back to the slides just on that. So when we're talking about that, it's everything. So the scrum for us is huge. It's game defining, and again, for that to happen, it's got to be all 8 of us has got to be in the fight until the ball's in flight, is what we say. There's again some little sort of strap lines and things that we may say around it, and to get everybody to buy in and understand what it means. But for me, the understanding of what we get out of this is so much more. So for our back row boys to understand, I'm having a bit of a dig at back rows here saying that they don't scrummage, but they're the ones that generally first off and have got probably more things to worry about, is that we've got to understand that if we want high scrum efficiency or effectiveness, we've all got to buy into it, and then we've got to understand what we do get from that. So if we talk about if we've got a successful scrum and the scrum's going well for us, the positive effect that can have on us physically and psychologically as a pack is massive. So again, you saw that picture there against London Irish. The pump that we got off the back of that to then go to the next maul and actually take them on up front again was huge. And we gain, say, energy from that physically and mentally. And again, we know that we're going to get more out of our front row boys, our front 5 guys around the field as far as making tackles, making carries. And so actually the back row boys understanding that, then go, right, well, if I fully buy into this and I go for this scrum, as it is going to be the one that's going to define this game. Well, then we're going to get. They know that they're going to get more out of the other boys as well. Obviously, that's looking at ourselves, but we know there's a negative effect as far as for the opposition as well, and we want to put them into a negative spin, a negative spiral around their physical actions. We want their front rowers standing up and going, what's just happened there, and not thinking about moving into position to make a tackle or getting up and working into position to carry the ball. So again, it's a two-way thing as far as what we're gaining positive momentum. We're putting the opposition in a bit of a spiral as well. So it's as I say, it's a huge part of what we obviously what we concentrate on and how we do it. And we've got to see that I've said that there's the scrums that game defining, but we've got to see each one as an individual challenge. And each scrum within the game is gone challenge by challenge, and we know that we play some good teams, and we know that they're going to have their time, and at one scrum they might get some decent go forward and actually maybe win a penalty or put us under some pressure, or they deliver their ball and actually play away nice and clean. So it's understanding that will happen, but over the course of the game, can we have the mindset that it's going to be challenge by challenge? We're going to try and fight and come out on top, and they say that they're the things that then going to define the overall end for the game for us. So what I'll look to now is obviously onto the next bit. So the next bit for us then is the physical part to it. So the physical part is are we as an 8 managing to get into the strongest scrum position we can, and again maintain that position under load and then with movement, and with that obviously our neck strength, especially for our front 5 boys, but our neck strength, our core strength, and then our lower limb strength and our ability to keep balance and keeping that strong position are really key. So what I'll do just on this, so there's a couple of things, and again just as we go through this, there's I know there's a lot of stuff done with the Scrum Factory, a lot of stuff around the top Scrum work. Now those principles are sort of really strong for me and around what that is. So again, it's about how we get this. So again, what we've sort of played around with and looked at and tweaked is just some ideas of how we check and challenge and how we're managing to get some of those positional things. So again, standard, and again, this doesn't matter whether for me, if we're working with somebody who's 13, 14-year-olds starting with the Scrum stuff, working all the way up to somebody who's an international prop. There's got to be the physical stuff is huge, and we've got to understand how we get into that best push position and how we maintain it. So obviously starting from the feet and working ourselves way up through our knees, our hip tilt, scaps, chest, etc., and then into where our head is. So it's a huge part of what we look at, and again how we then train it. Now, some guys will say when we talk about the Scrum Factory stuff, we talk about the Tower of Power. This was just something that I got from New Zealand when I were over with the Crusaders, and Jason Ryan in particular, just working with their forwards coach and looking at some of this stuff, was the biarticular line. So when it doesn't go away from the fact that we're talking of the same angles, so that 90 to 120 degrees at the hip and knee, all of those things there, but it just gives us an easier way, if you like, a quick way to check on that we've got those angles, and it's something we can peer to peer, we can coach it, we can look at it, and we can check each other, and it's an easy check then when we're actually going back and reviewing on the scrums individually and as a team as well. So the biarticular line is a line that can be drawn from your shoulder down through the knee and into the forefoot, and that line should pass from shoulder through the knee and down to the forefoot. As we can see with this picture here, obviously it's a slightly different angled line depending on where those on the position that each player's in. So again, Mako's slightly higher on the loose head there, and we can see that so his knees are going to be slightly forward. His chest is obviously slightly higher, so his knees are going to be slightly further forward. His feet are going to be slightly further forward to get that biarticular line, to get it to pass through that same point. Whereas Jackson Ray on the flank there, slightly lower with his chest, so his feet are going to be slightly further back, knees slightly further back and slightly lower. That then gives him that same plane. We're still getting that line from his shoulder down through his knee and into his forefoot. So again, that's just and it's a quick, easy way for us to check and to test that we're in that most powerful position without talking too much about degrees of angles of knee bend and hip extension, etc. So again, just with that, again, I've just got a couple of clips of again how we then train the physical stuff, and try and explain a little bit more around the biarticular line. So just the first clip. It's just looking at that. So this is from the Six Nations just gone. So looking at Scotland and Italy. And again, when we talk about the scrum, we talk about getting low to be strong. That this probably shows that it doesn't always equate to being low to actually being in the strongest position. So as we watch this scrum, as its scrum unfolds a little bit, we can see there that we'd say that the Italian tight head is lower than the Scottish loose head there. But it doesn't, he's not in the strongest push position, so he's not actually managing to exert any pressure really on the opposition on the Scottish loose head. So again, if we draw that biarticular line from his forefoot up to his shoulder, we can see that it doesn't pass anywhere near his knee, and so we know that physically he's not going to be able to exert as much pressure as he can on the opposition loose head. Whereas if we look at the obviously Scottish loose head, now we could look at his upper body and say, well, the shape, he could be flatter through his back and have a slightly bigger chest. Well, but if we're looking just at the biarticular line as far as where his shoulders, where his knee, and where his forefoot are, well, he's slightly higher, but he's going to be able to exert more pressure and have more strength through that scrum and be able to put that pressure on. So again, this is what we look at. Obviously, from it's how fast we can get into that position, and again how we get that through Mako's shoulder down there, through his knee, into his foot. From Nick Ezekwe there, slightly different again on the flank there to where Billy is, and Billy's left his left leg there and things. So again, that's a bit of a sort of a quick explanation of how we use the biarticular line, just to try and check where we are in position. And again, I say there's lots of other things done around it as far as I say the Tower of Power, but it's all the same things, but maybe just something else just as a coaching tool just to use and to give sort of more instant feedback if you like. I guess from that then we'll just move on as far as how we then train some of these things. So again, a lot of the work that we will do is having a concentration on that biarticular line and understanding how we can put the players into that position as much as we can and put it under some physical challenge. So again, exercise, I'm guessing lots of people already do, but just around being inventive, or just coming up with some different ideas around how you challenge that, how you put it into positions for everyone. So this is obviously a bit more specific. This is a tight head one, so one just a bit more in the gym. So again, putting the tight head under load, making him working in both of his left and his right shoulder, putting some pressure through his hips, and then obviously making him work that his neck strength at the same time. So again, just working him and holding him in that position for an extended period of time as well. So it actually makes it harder to hold in that sort of shape. Again, just as far as the loose head, looking at the specifics of the loose head side. Again, he's just got that weight through his outside arm. So putting pressure where the tight is going to be bound on the outside arm, making him work hard to stay square, making him work hard to stay and keep pressure through that inside shoulder, and keeping his hips nice and flat. Again, generally our loose heads tend to fall out to the left, so somebody putting pressure and trying to pull his hips out and round to the left as well, and he's working hard against that. Similar theme, just around the bind, something slightly different. So he's got to lock that left arm binding, keep his left elbow high, and again, trying to put pressure to force his head out, his arm down, and making him work to have to stay square on these binds. So again, I can just whiz through these. Again, similar one for tight head. So again, tight head hooker is really good one, this, as far as making them lock into a good, strong position and hold these positions of strength. Again, giving them something to be able to lock their feet against and anchor themselves down. But again, then having two players then that are going to try and peel that player out of that strong position. So trying to affect his shoulders, trying to affect his hips. But as a tight head, as a hooker, being able to just lock that in and work his shoulders and stay in that position of strength under that two-prong attack from a loose head and from a hooker for a tight head. Again, then sort of looking at then the movement stuff, and again, this is all generic stuff for all of our front, for all of our forwards to do. So again, looking at the movement stuff. So again, looking at how we put pressure on to make them understand how they're going to lock that core in, lock it nice and strong. And again, just having a play around and for us, we get the players to come up with a lot of these lots of exercises along with the conditioning staff, but with an understanding that we always go back to. Are we looking at the biarticular line? Are we in the best push position? Are we managing to maintain that shape and put it under different stresses? Again, working here with two locks. Again, locks tend to hips rolling around and getting the different pressures. So again, with a band between their hips, trying to pull their hips together, can they work out and manage to keep that square, keep nice and low, and working through all those different pressures. Again, looking here as well as actually the extension phase as well. So our loose head here. How he actually goes from that position where he's in that position with his the biarticular line, and then it's the extension of how he actually looks to extend and get that triple extension and get his chest going forward and down, not just extending and letting his chest ride up in the air. So trying to keep his chest parallel and actually squeezing everything down and forward as we then go, and again with that pressure around the head and neck. Big focus for us is around staying square as we can throughout the whole scrum. So again, working the left-hand triangle, so loose head hooker, flanker, left-hand lock, and how we're trying to, I'm working on the edge of that, trying to knock them off square, trying to push, trying to pull, and they're working, trying to resist me being able to push that off, whilst then keeping forward momentum and trying to keep the scrum going forward. Again, a lot of our stuff then is what we're working on is live, and again, trying to come up with ways of how we challenge that and how we put it under different pressures. So here we've got a prop here working over the top of a line, and the challenge is he's got to stay. We're talking about staying square. He's got to stay square and work himself straight down the middle of the field. So he's working with his feet splitting that line, and he's got to stay square over that line whilst the opposition are trying to lift him up or spin him round and put him off balance. So again, we're keeping him under pressure and under load, and then we add to that with what we then do with the next guys with prop and lock, and again opposition trying to just knock him off, trying to wheel him off square, but we're working hard then to stay square and stay through that. So again, that's sort of just the general gist of what we'll try and do. Again, the big focus for us is around that strongest position and how we get into it and do we understand how to hold it, but then just putting it under them pressure and stresses that that, how do we manage to maintain that through movement and through different pressures. So I guess then we'll just look at the last part to that, which again we sort of talked a little bit about. It's then our ability to consistently engage from that position of our setup into that position, of strength and power, so that into that best push position. So that then for us falls under what we'll talk about, our skill set. Now, there's obviously some crossover, and some of the things we're talking about there of being able to maintain and hold that shape and that physical stuff. There's always obviously some crossover within some of the skill set stuff as well. But this is then a real focus for us around how we get into that low square position, and it's the things that then we train and how we get that right. I put there again. You see that there's a link to some dominoes. Again, I'll explain what that is, but again, it's a pictorial thing that we can actually look at. And it's an easy, quick way of checking and understanding why each part of the scrum is important. And I say I'll go through that shortly. But again, just the first thing I want to talk about is just how important this the scrum. So what we talk about of being able to get from our bind point to then our engaged position when we're actually engaged and make contact with the opposition, of how we get to that strongest shape. And one quick sort of way that we look at it and check it is we'll use what we call the scrum clock. So it's our femur at the point of bind. So before we've actually engaged, are our femurs at 12 o'clock if we're looking at them straight side on. So you can see here our prop, our flanker here, both got their femurs at that 12 o'clock point. And then what we're wanting to do is as quickly and as safely as we can, we want to obviously transfer forward into the position where we looking then at a 1 o'clock with our femur. So, and again, if we're checking that then with our biarticular line, so we go from our tight head and we go from his foot through his knee to his shoulder, have we managed to get into that position? So again, this is just a quick one for us just to think about, are we managing to go from 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock and actually hit our hips through, and again, everything else stays nice and still, and it's trying to get into that position with minimal movement. So we should have had no foot movement. Our chest should just go forward nice and flat, and our hips go forward and break that line as well. So it's how, again, just an easy one to look at and to check and say, well, have our hips moved forward from the point of setup there? Have we actually gone forward into the scrum, or have we just hinged and rolled and dipped and dropped our heads? So again, just a one that we use and something that we look to check and make sure that we're getting what we need to get out of the engagements sort of sequence. Again, we like sort of metaphors and things that we try and use. So again, the scrum dominoes was something that we looked at and we talked about. And again, it gives us a process to everything that we do. So there's a process to everything, starting with the first domino, which was obviously the setup, and then to the next one, to the bind. And we work our way through. We understand that everything's got a knock-on effect to how the next domino falls and the effectiveness of that next domino of striking the next one. So we understand that at times we could probably get away with just a whole load of fight in the scrum, and we know that we could just turn up with a good mentality and fight and actually get what we want to get out of that one scrum. But to do it consistently and against good teams, we're not gonna always get what we want to get out of it. So the dominoes gives us then a sequence of things that we're going to go through to understand, if something goes wrong, it gives us a way to go back and to fix it. And it gives us then something by way of, through our week's training, of something to go back and a process to go through and say, right, well, what happened? So we were losing the hit on the weekend. Why were we losing the hit? So we're losing the hit because of just our speed of from 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock, we weren't getting our hips to go forward, or was it something else to do with we were getting sat back on the bind? So then we go back and say, right, well, actually, on the bind, we weren't managing to put ourselves at 12 o'clock because of this. And now, was that to do with our setup? So was that to do with the first domino? No, actually, we're in a good position there, so we're happy with that first bit. It's the next bit where we were slow on the bind and slow on our adjust. So then that means that we weren't able to get out of the blocks, and we weren't able to get ourselves to from 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock. So our hit wasn't strong enough. So again, it gives us those little details. Then gives us the bit we can then break it down and say, right, this is what we need to focus on for training, but also during games. So again, if we think about it in the game, we can go, look, yeah, our setup's good, our hit's not working, but our hit's not working because of this. Okay, so we need to speed up our binds from our props and our foot adjustment so we can get into a position and ready to engage because we're getting sat back. So again, it's just a simple thing that we use to then try and give us those processes through it. Again, that's I won't go through all of that, but that's the people want to read through that. That's just I guess the sections to it and the things that we'll talk about and how we get through those. So I guess now we'll just go through some other clips again and just have a look at what that looks like for us. So we just starting with the scrum. So obviously, for us, the whole scrum is led, and the hooker is the man in the middle. So he dictates sort of where we set up, how we set up. So he'll gauge the mark and do everything, and he'll lead the scrum as far as that point, and he'll lead the scrum vocally for us as well. So he'll set over the mark and set the distance of where we want to sit based on what we've practiced through the week and how he feels what we need to do in the game. From that, then we have our props then come in and they'll bind then to the hooker, and we'll generally go sort of back from behind, so we'll go low to high, and then Jamie will generally bind to our tight head first, then bind to our loose head. And again, reasons for that is, again, we found that sometimes if you bind to your loose head, you never actually our hooker never gets properly squared back up. But if he binds to our tight head first, then drops his arm on our loose head, he's actually got a nice good connection here and he's staying nice and square. And again, I'll come on to a little bit why that's important in a little while. So he'll set that. Our props will then come in and say, well, when they've got that bind, they're setting the split stance. So they'll set with their inside foot is where they want it to be for the bind, and then into the set, and when we actually make contact with the opposition. So we don't want that inside foot to move. They're then getting balanced by having that outside foot slightly further forward. So again, around sort of heel-toe distance. So from the toe of his left foot to the heel of his right foot is about the split that we're looking at there. And then he'll obviously adjust that when we get the bind. For us, and this is where I know there's quite lots of variations around how this is done. For us, we set with our locks and our whole of our middle row. So our locks and our flankers will then come in and bind through when the hooker calls them in, and they'll bind and they'll set up on their knees and stay on their knees until the referee's actually called the bind phase. Reasons for this was, for us, it's for comfort and the fact that we don't feel like we're depowering ourselves by being in that position. So we've got some big locks. So if we're taking Will Skelton, George Cruz, some of those guys, what we found is that the crouch, from the crouch, the bind, and then to the set phase was actually taking a little bit longer because our referees are checking for balance and making sure it's nice and safe in each phase. Is that then to ask a big second rower to be in that 3/4 crouch or that held in that with in a bent over position? It's actually depowering us, and it's taking a lot of energy away from our locks. So we said, look, we'll start on our knees. It gives us a good balance to our front row. We're not nudging them around and knocking them off balance. And then it looks like then as the referee calls bind, we come up and we'll feel a bit more powerful, ready for the next phase. As I said, when they actually come through, so again, our locks will bind through the props legs and look to bind, so locking the bicep and the forearm up onto that up the groin and making sure that it's nice and tight there. So actually locking in, and again, the actual fingers, the hand bind is the last thing that they'll focus on. Again, because that's not so strong, but the bind to make sure we've got good shoulder contact through that bicep, through that forearm is key for us. And again, same for our flankers, making sure that they've got a good shoulder connection, turning that head in onto the prop's hip and making sure that we're in that good, strong shape there. And again, Billy, number 8 there, again, he'll start on a knee and he'll look to bind. Generally, again, we've played around with, and it's, again, personal preference for him of how he wants to bind, either through the locks, around the outside of the locks. But again, he's already, what the key is that he's got to have good shoulder contact by the time we actually come up. So at that point there, we're nice and flat, we're nice and balanced, and we're all in control of our own movements. Then when we come to the bind, as I said, that our props then on the bind, we're looking then to adjust the outside foot back. So we can see our tight head just adjusted his foot back slightly. Our middle row come off their knees. 8 comes off his knee and he's in that split position and he's ready then to engage. So again, what we're looking at then is again looking at that from minimal movements now, looking at trying to get everybody into that position where we've got, as I said before, that sort of 12 o'clock type line with our legs, and then being able to then engage into that position to 12 o'clock, nice and fast, nice and safely. But again, that gives us that position where now we're all in that most powerful position and actually driving into the opposition. So again, that's a sort of simple, why we try and set up the way that we try and set up. And then again, I guess I'll take you through some of the other bits. But for me, the last bit that I just talked about is it's really personal preference, and it's about doing what works for your group. So if you've got locks that struggle to stay on knees and physically come up off their knees, well then we've got to look at a different way of doing it. We changed it because our locks found it more powerful and better for them to be on the knees for longer. So then that's why we changed it. Now, obviously, the Crusaders, the Kiwi teams, do it slightly differently, whereas they'll hold their front row back slightly. And I know there's a couple of teams in England that do this as well. They'll start their locks on a split stance. Again, reasons why they'll do this is obviously the flankers are letting the props get a little bit further forward into the space, so they feel like they're further into the scrum, and they don't have to. They're minimising movements. Again, with their locks, they feel like it's easy if they're up off their knees. Any small adjustments they can do with their feet, they feel like they can do that better, and they can get their weight onto the bind slightly earlier as well. So, but for me, again, the key thing to look at is that no matter how they've done it, we all end up at the same point where we want to get to a point where we've got everybody with sort of that 12 o'clock femur on the bind to a 1 o'clock femur when we actually make contact with the opposition. So it's all about trying, and again, you've got to work out what works best for you, what they feel most comfortable with, and then going ahead and sort of practicing that, and again making sure that becomes part of the routine each time. So I guess that's just general. Again, what we'll look at now is just to go through just a couple of things just around some of the technical things around some of the binds, especially around the props binding, the hookers, focus when he's in the scrum. So again, if we're looking at obviously Furlong here, world-class operator as far as his scrum. Now he got there's a couple of scrums just in this game, in the England game, where I think Marla managed to get into him. So again, if you just look at his outside bind and where he goes to here, so we're just looking at his right arm here, just how high and up and over the top he goes, and what that does, it opens that window, and it opens up that point where Joe can get his head underneath him and just start to dictate a little bit where he wants to go. So he's got no pressure. He's not affecting Joe at any sort of point at that point, and Joe's able to sort of dictate where he wants to go. Now with good connections here with the hooker as well. So I think it's Cowan-Dickey that's in the middle. So Luke's got a good left shoulder connection there. It's allowed then Marlon now, as Furlong tries to turn in, it's given Marlon a chance just to stay nice and straight on him and actually put him under a load of pressure as he tries to turn in and escape that pressure. But for me, when we talk about the dominoes, it all starts because of this very first thing of how high he is with this outside arm, that he's allowing Marla just to dictate and put him where he wants to put him. So for me then, it becomes key that, again, what we want to try and do is on this bind, as a tight head, we want to be low and long and get that brace where he's then binding across the loose head's bicep and tricep type area, and making it uncomfortable for him to get that bind and actually get himself put into a position where he feels strong. So we can see here, so Vincent Koch has managed just to get across the bicep tricep area of the Saints loose head there. Allows him then to get out of the blocks and make him and keep him sort of pinned down into that position there. And you can see just at the point of contact, just how he's now lost that position. So he's got his elbows down towards the floor, his head's getting pushed down towards the floor, and Vincent's in a decent flat position, ready to now put the next bit on. So again, so that's the key for me is around the outside bind. It's where he's putting that. So I'll talk about the inside bind with the hooker in a moment. Now, if we flip that, then obviously looking at the loose head, we sort of said obviously that he doesn't want to end up where we just saw that Northampton loose head end up getting there. But for me, if we go back through our dominoes here, when we're reviewing this with Barrington for us, it's around the fact that we've had a big adjust with his outside foot. And he's had to get his outside foot back, we've had to have a big lift of his hips. That's had a big knock-on effect, and that's allowed then Cole to sort of dictate to him with his outside bind. And he's already started putting Barrington under a little bit of pressure as far as this is concerned. So then already now straight away we can look at Barrington's shape with his outside arm, his bind, his head, that Cole is in a good position. And because of that, because his arm's gone, because like Lou said, again, if your outside arm gets dragged towards the floor, if your head gets pushed down towards your chest and you start to go, you tend then to fall away from your inside. So you see his inside foot starting to move, you see his hip starting to fall away from his hooker, and you see space starting to open up between the loose head's right shoulder and the hooker's shoulder as well. So then ultimately he gets split, or he ends up getting forced down onto the floor. And again, it's a really important one, again, for safety, but two, if we want to try and stay square and actually put some pressure on. So again, if we look at Mako, just a bit quicker with his bind here. So again, it's a quick, good, positive, quick bind up onto his back, locking that elbow nice and high, but also the speed at which he gets this outside foot back without affecting his hips. So his hips stay in the same place, and he's in that same area already now, ready just to punch through and stay nice and square. And again, you can see he's got good connection with his hooker. So through his inside shoulder, and his inside knee is nice and close to the floor. He's not getting rolled away from that inside hip and inside knee. So again, for little practices we can do, and again, it's just making it competitive as well, is all these things around, our loose head versus tight head. So again, looking at the binds here, so looking at our, the race here from our loose head to get that, like we said, like Mako got that hook bind and getting that elbow nice and high and forcing that tight head to take that high bind. So again, we can see right from the picture that he's started to affect the tight head. Tight head starting to look like he's going to have to angle in, and it's allowing our loose head to keep that nice and strong. And as I said, not only is it putting him in a position of strength to got him, but it's a lot safer as well, because he can actually now keep pressure through his right shoulder. It's enabling him to keep that left arm high, which allows him to stay square and not get rolled in and get that pitching where he ends up landing facing into the scrum. Obviously, in the flip of that, we're then working again, looking at the tight head. So tight head obviously does a better job here. So this is one we talked about of binding across the bicep and tricep and binding down the side of the body. And again, you can just see it just starting to affect the loose head a little bit and making it a little bit more uncomfortable for him on that bind. Again, so 1v1, as we say, we're going into this. We can then start working it 3v3, just to the bind phases, and again making sure. Are we checking it? Are we happy with that? Are we in a good, strong position? Are we adjusted fast enough and safe enough that we're in a position now ready to fire? And are we checking now that we've got that femur at 12 o'clock, we've got our chest nice and flat, and we're ready to engage into the next bit? And as I say, what tends to happen, the more buddies and more people you put around this, the more it becomes harder for the front rowers just to make sure. So again, we've got to practice it as an 8v8. So again, we'll see here, both props here. So Mako and TT, working on that bind speed, that adjust speed. Again, trying to minimize hip height going up and down, hips going backwards and forwards, and being able to lock into that position nice and quickly, nice and safely. And again, we're talking about those femurs being at 12 o'clock, ready to fire through the rest of the pack as well. And again, that's just to the bind phase. Now after this, we've obviously seen the scrum. It's then the speed. So once we've got the bind, we've got our setup with each other. We've got the bind with the opposition. We've got ourselves in that position. It's then the speed that we can get across that mark and into position of strength, and then actually into a load and ready to go into the next phase of that load and actually putting pressure through and into the opposition. So, some of the key things for this is just around the hooker's foot stab. So again, on the bind, say we might have a slight adjust of his foot back there, depending on what the weight feels like. But generally, we'll then try and actually get that foot back and engage on the set. He's dropping that foot back. So again, we can see here that what we have to work on here was just what tends to happen quite a lot is our tight heads will set, and because the hooker's got his right foot forward, feels like there's more space there than there actually is. So then he'll start trying to pinch a little bit of space with his left leg, our tight head. So then as our hooker drops his right foot back, he's dropping it onto his foot, and then he has to take that inside foot off the floor, which again is depowering him and making it more unstable. So again, for safety, we've got to keep it on the floor. So again, working it as a three, working it against the machine there, we can see. Again, working it as a three against each other. And as I say, we talked about the hooker there, just doing that so we can see the Mizuno boot there, just having a little drop back just as he gets that. So make it that shorter snap once he's got to get the set. Is then it's a smaller little jab back. But again, we're looking for that speed and getting into that position fast and safely. Again, doing drills around this stuff with just with the front row and the flankers. So again, the flankers, making sure that we're feeling that. Are we feeling the speed to get across? Speed of that transfer from 12 to 1. Getting that pressure on, making sure that we're not moving our feet around too much once we make contact, and staying in that position of strength. Same for the locks. So again, a little practice for the locks on the scrum machines, working as a pair with the number 8. Obviously, if shoulders already on the pads, on the bind, we're popping up off our knees into that position of strength. And then on the set, well, then can we drive through? And again, what we can see here just a little bit is if the boys were going back and reviewing that, they'll just see that the hips from Nick here just pops up slightly as he goes to extend. So again, it's how can we just make sure that our hips aren't riding up, we're dropping down and going nice and forward with that. But again, that speed to get that feet back under ourselves and get back in a strong position. And again, for us, it's all about, and again, this comes a little bit to that mentality stuff as well, is we've got to make it competitive at times with each stage. So as you can see, we've got a centre line mark in the middle of the scrum there. It's about then who can we win the bind, can we win the set, and who can be loaded first. So again, you see Mako, they've just got inches over that middle line point of the line, so they're not hitting and going through the line. They're over the line, but then they're loading, and it's who can be fastest into that position of strength and ready to go and go into the next phase of the scrum. So again, that we practice that just as one. That's not a full scrum. That is just practicing that first bit, and then we'll break it up. But again, it's about how can we get into that position of strength as quick as we can. I know there's quite a lot of stuff here. I'm sort of rattling through it, so hopefully people are staying with me. This was just sort of, again, thinking we're talking about as far as, so if we talk about we want to hit and we want to get into a position of strength, what is it that can knock us off a position of strength? So I think what we've got to understand, and we've got to understand, especially our hookers, is that this point here, so the right side, the right-hand shoulder of our hookers is where the scrum naturally pivots. So it's naturally going to turn around that point. Now what's happened is, obviously with a strike being reintroduced a couple of years back, is that it's now, obviously the hookers are now focusing on the strike and probably just at times just taking themselves away from that point where it naturally pivots. And again, if opposition understand that, well, that's a point of weakness for a scrum. So again, as they hit here, we can see that there's a step left from our loose head, a step left from our hooker, and a drive towards that left-hand side towards where the ball is, which then leaves our tight head on his own, and it just exposes that right shoulder of the hooker there. Again, what also it does, again, we can see is it just actually puts everybody in compromised positions as far as we want to put everything pushing in straight lines and into the opposition. We can see that, we've lost our loose head's line, slightly gone out. Our hooker's slightly heading the opposite line, and he's heading sort of towards their tight head. Our tight head square, but not just our front row. It's then just the knock-on effect that has now. So our left-hand lock he's now looking and he's pointing out. Our right-hand lock's got a bit the same. Flankers, So again, if we look at all these lines, they're all pointing in different directions, and we're not actually maximising our force to go forward and through into the opposition. The other thing that this does create is it creates a little bit of so at that point between the prop and the lock, it creates a bit of a truck and trailer. It creates a weak point. So that's a point where under pressure, that point's going to go and it's going to snap. So we've got to work hard to keep that point as square as we can. So again, just another visual of that. So again, if we're looking at that right shoulder of the hooker, so on the point of contact, more focus on staying square and actually going at the hooker. At the point of contact, we've had no step left. So again, all these positions now are squarer and into the opposition, and actually maximising everybody's force that's going straight forward and into the opposition, rather than say splintering off and going off in different directions. Again, just another obviously picture of this. So again, we see it from the island game. So Ireland do a decent job here of two double teaming on Sinks. So we'll see them go at this shoulder here. This Sinclair's inside, so his left shoulder. But the things that obviously knock on and how that sort of happens is they've obviously done a good job. They've got a good connection there. The loose end and the hooker from Ireland. But obviously there's another thing as well. So Jamie's connection there with Sinks just starts to go as he's looking at to get over there to strike. There's also Marla's just had a bit. He's just stepped and he's just gone a little bit around the outside. So now with that pressure now coming from Ireland and going straight at Sinclair, it obviously creates that weak point. And that's where and then again, that's that truck and trailer effect that we talked about, that we get them ripping around the side of it. So again, just looking at this from the Wales game. So again, Jamie loads better on this one as far as actually that right shoulder and taking on, the Welsh hooker, and you can see him actually square him up as he hits him and goes forward at him. That the whole scrum squares, and now Jamie's able to stay square down that line. Sinclair's able to stay square. Marla's staying a lot squarer. So then everybody else's ability to stay square and keep that pressure and keep that weight going into the opposition is a lot easier for them. Again, little things we can practice around this is obviously if we take away our hooker's loose head, so there's no way that he can actually focus and go across there. Again, it's just for feel. It's how does he feel to scrum through his right shoulder. Again, understanding that he's going to have to scrum probably more off his left foot. So he's driving off his left foot more there towards his right shoulder, and protecting that seam there between him and that seam between him and the tight head there. Again, what we're asking obviously of the opposition to do, we're asking the opposition hooker to try and split that seam and put pressure on it. Asking the opposition loose head to try and drive up and put the tight head in a compromised position there as well. So again, can we focus on that and making sure we get in that. The next bit, again, we don't use machines too much, but we'll use this, and this is again just a good one for our, obviously we get our setup, we get our hit, we get our speed of hit, our speed of load, and then it's about obviously getting that power on and how we get that power to go through and into the opposition. So again, good hit, and then it's about this and getting that timing and working as an 8. So here we're working opposition ball. So as the ball's shown, the ball's put in, can we get that explosion, get that timing right, that we're all going together and working through there. And again, I think we see the picture, similar pitch again here, just on this. So again, are we able to transfer nice and quickly, load up quickly into that position of power, and then get that snap to go forward and put some heat, put some pressure on the opposition. So that's and again, it obviously talks a bit about the energy and the buzz that sort of stuff gives us. Again, you can see that in the reaction of the lads here when we get the positive result that we want to get from that scrum. It obviously gives us a huge lift and a big buzz. So last two things, guys. I know I'm sort of wittering on here. Just obviously, then we talked about right at the very start. We talked about tactically of how we want to do it. So again, we talked about how we want to get some of those things, with the technical stuff and the skill sets and around the physical. But again, understanding of how it's important and why we want to go after some of those things. So again, just from the final last year, just our ability to, when we want to play quick, of having that ability to strike channel 1 and for this. We'll work on getting the ball from 9 to 2 to 8 as nice and quickly and as quick as we can. And again, what we'll try and do is that for this channel, we're striking. We're going through the loose head's legs, down the outside of the left hand lock's left leg, and inside the flankers or marrow there, out inside his leg there, obviously as well. And then Billy being able to trap that, and again playing away quick. But as we said, tactically, what we're looking at and what we've got to feel then is during the game, after this scrum, so this was a scrum early on, how does Jamie feel? How do the front row boys feel? What have we seen as far as some of the pictures, as far as some of their guys, what are they doing at scrum time? So we're looking here, looking at how fast are these guys looking to try and get off the scrum. So what does that mean then for us tactically as the game moves on? Are we going to change what we're trying to do? So then, obviously here, Jamie sort of said, look, I feel good. I feel like we can properly get after them. So we've then gone to more of a channel 2. So again, straight through the hooker, through the feet of the loose head, but going more down through the channel then of the left-hand lock's feet. So going between his feet and straight to Billy. So then Billy can stay in channel 2. and give us maximum power to try and work through his right side and give maximum power to the right side of our scrum. So then obviously we're looking for dominance. We're looking for potential penalties if they've decided they then know the next time that they're back row are going to have to stay on. They've got to stay in this fight and stay on there. But again, where we come back to, and again, I talked about the fact that we want to stay sort of just sort of low and square. This now, because we've managed to stay square, this gives us the ability to play what we want to play off it anyway. So if we want to still, we've got the advantage, we've got the penalty. So yeah, we can take that, or we can actually still play the play that we wanted to play off the back of it, because the scrum's stable enough and square enough that we can then do what we want to do off it as well. So that is that. As far as the clips, I understand that was a lot of things to obviously watch and to take in. So I guess any questions on any of that stuff now, or any of the other stuff. And again, that's generally how we how we break it down. So obviously the philosophy at the top of it. Again, the understanding how tactically we're going to get to how we want to get to that with our philosophy, with how we're going to approach each game, and then the three key areas that then go around that of how we then practice that week to week and sort of game to game.